is, man. We ain't about to panic. Ain't no need to be nervous. It's a fight. It's a 7-point ball game, and we get the ball first. It's a fight. Go out there and fight.
Gives it to Love, running left, tripped up, stays on his feet through one tackle, muscling and strong.
Whoa, he scored!
He's in!
Oh my gosh!
Touchdown, Notre Dame! Jeremiah Love would not be denied! Aller throws, loose ball, intercepted! Christian Gray picks it off! Notre Dame will get the ball back!
Irish Nation, welcome to the show. Mike and I now are playing around with this intro song. You get to see our face in silence. I think, Mike, we got to learn sign language. How do you say USC sucks in sign language? I think it's this, actually.
Should be. If it's not, it should be. Yeah.
Should be. Notre Dame, huge rivalry win, 34-24, taking down Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans. Mike, we got a lot to cover. I think this is as much notes as I've had that I can remember on this show to go through a game. Breaking down a lot of film today. I've got 7 different clips. I don't know if we'll get through all of them, but I am super pumped to dive into this game. Let's start off. Overall vibes, reaction, key stats here for what this game was for Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was an ugly game. No getting around it. It was rainy. It was windy. Both teams made a lot of sloppy errors. For us, particularly on special teams, but also just leaving a lot of points on the table. This is the type of game, I can think back to many games like this during the Brian Kelly era. Obviously, the NC State game is an example. Clemson is another one where we found ourselves
and Miami on the road. Yeah, rain games, not our friend.
Yeah, not our friend. And this is one where I think the resilience and the culture of Marcus Freeman's program won the day. We kept our nerve, even when some of our key players maybe weren't having their best day. And look, we played a very physical game, and over the course of 4 quarters, that eventually, I think it ground down USC. And even some of our players who made some mistakes, they didn't get rattled and stepped up and made some really critical plays. Christian Gray is certainly one who definitely comes to mind. That's something that he's done over and over again. And again, that the point I'm making here is that this is what Marcus Freeman instills in his program. It's you got to maintain your nerve. You got to maintain competitive. Don't get rattled. Just think of the next play. Have a short memory. Trust your teammates. And that's what we saw. So as sloppy as it was, I contrast that with how satisfying a win it was. Pete Sampson had a column that he wrote today where he was really talking about like exactly that, how satisfying this win was. And I think he nailed it. I think it was again. It's kind of surprising to say that a game where it had so many mistakes and things like that could be so satisfying, but this was just the manner in which the team showed its resilience. So I'm ecstatic, and look, I think also like another part of this that you can't get around is that the path to a playoff, seems very attainable now. It seems pretty clear. Look, I'm going to qualify that we don't know for sure how the committee is going to approach things, but assuming that they're not terribly far off from the AP poll, it seems like there is a clear path to the playoff, which is after the first couple weeks, something that was very much in doubt.
We'll cover this in more detail and what that path is during the bye week. Quick preview, a 94% plus chance of beating every single opponent on the schedule except for Pittsburgh on the road, where we have an 80% chance. Sum those all together, about a 65 to 70% chance Notre Dame runs the table. And with where we're positioned and other top 15 matchups left across college football, I agree. Clear path to the college football playoff from here. Maybe even sneak into a home game. We'll see how things shake out. Look, we're a stats-based podcast. This one was dominant. We had a 49% success rate. More on that in a second. USC had a 33% success rate. Got to spend a lot of time on that stat. I thought that was the stat of the game. We had a 19% havoc rate. They only generated 10% havoc. SP Plus, they look at post-game win expectancies and also break down the post-game expected margin. If you just replayed all of those plays over and over and over again, how many points do you think we should score? We had 100% post-game win expectancy and a 19-point margin. That extra 9 points, we only won by 10. Where was it? I think you said it. We left a lot of points on the board. Missed a field goal. That was a chippy. Missed an extra point. The really inexplicable Carr interception took points off the board in the red zone. behind that, play-by-play data was dominant in this game. Thought a really good showing. Mike, we've got to start with the defense. We always like to say what side of the ball played best, and let's start there. Let's go glass half full. But both sides played well in this game. But to me, it's the defense. And I thought the podcast we had on the show last week, Lights on Torch.
Light the Torch.
Light the Torch, did a really great job, highlighting the skill position players. I don't think we did enough justice, though, for just how historically great this USC offense is. And frankly, doing the recap actually made me more scared of them than I did in the preview. They have averaged over 552 yards of offense. They have averaged 44 points per game. And that's not just against the Cupcakes. They put up 490 yards of offense against both Michigan and Illinois, two top 25 defenses. So the play-by-play data says this is, a great offense. We held them 20 points below their season average and 150 yards below their season average. And the reason they're so good, I thought this was just the stat of the game. The reason USC is so good is they stay on schedule better than any other offense at a tune of, like, in the last 25 years, they would be on pace to set the record for success rate. Coming into this game, they were number one in the country with a 62% success rate, and the highest ever was 57%. For context, Joe Burrow's 2019 LSU offense had a success rate of 55%. And this Trojan offense is 62% in that metric. Again, success rate. Do you get half the yards on first down, 70% of the yards on second down, and do you convert on third down? How often do you stay on schedule? A historically great team at staying on schedule since this metric was tracked in 2001. And they had a 33% success rate in this game. That is a bottom quintile, a 20th percentile ranking. If you just take every single game in college football, the 20% worst games by an offense is 33% or worse. They were a bottom quintile offense against Notre Dame's defense at staying on schedule. Just a lights out game from Chris Ash and this defense. Of course, they got their explosiveness. Of course, they got their points on the board. Of course, they've got their All-American talent, but they could not stay on schedule. And it's why they only put up 24 points, well off of their, really historical start to this season. By far the biggest headline for me.
I agree. Yeah. If there's a advanced stat that you want to really key in on, it's success rate. It's definitely the biggest. Obviously, havoc rate is really big as well, as is explosiveness. But Brett, as you rightfully pointed out, a team that has a very high success rate, that's the strongest correlation. That's the stat that gives you the strongest correlation in terms of the best offenses. And even though USC had definitely their weakest offensive performance, I believe thus far this season, per SP Plus, the main advanced metric that we tend to key in on, they're still number one. There's, as of the SP Plus rankings that are hot off the presses this morning, they're still number one. Although, actually, interestingly, now this is a bit of an aside. Notre Dame is actually the number two offense, which is kind of interesting because I think a lot of Notre Dame fans feel like we certainly could have played a lot better on offense than we did. Not the running game, to be clear. I don't think the running game possibly could have played any better, but but certainly the passing game was not at their best. So that just tells you how exceptional this USC offense was. That even with this performance where we really bottled them up and kept their success rate really low, we generated a very strong level of havoc, nearly 20%. Now, look, that's not like elite, but that's very good, especially against an offense like that. Look, it just again, this is just a banner performance. It's the type of performance that we would tend to see from Al Golden. This was at that level. So I think Chris Ash gets a lot of credit. The players get a lot of credit, and we did it a lot of ways. I think one spot I want to start with is just we gave them absolutely nothing in the run game. Absolutely nothing. Anytime they ran ball, it was basically almost a guarantee it wasn't going to be a successful play. They had a couple runs that you could call successful, but by and large, it was really nothing. Averaged these are unadjusted stats I'm throwing out here, but 2.3, yards per carry, 68 rush yards total. This number is not adjusted for sacks, but regardless, they really were not getting anything. And so
just basically 1 yard before contact, I thought was the big stat for the defensive line. Gabriel Rubio's out in this game. You're a little worried about depth. 1 yard before contact, just not getting any push.
Exactly. And so when you're not getting any push, it's and then on top of that, you have to qualify some of this. The two of their best backs were out, but still, even with that, very, very strong performance. And then what that meant was that USC just had to throw the ball a ton, and obviously they're very effective passing the ball. Look, he definitely got some yards, 328 yards, but he had to throw the ball 42 times, and he had 2 interceptions. And per Pro Football Focus, he didn't grade out. Look, it wasn't terrible, but for someone who is leading an offense of that caliber, USC would definitely like to have better production, a better grade out of the quarterback. He graded out as a 64.7, which is, again, not horrible, but certainly not the type of performance that you need to win this game. It's it's about a replacement level. It's certainly not like a star QB level. His completion percentage, this is an unadjusted number, about 54%. So look, not particularly high. Yards per attempt 8. So it's, as Brett and I have talked about before, if you have a lower completion percentage, you'd like those yards per attempt to be higher. And his isn't it's not like that's a very low number, but if you're throwing about 50%, you'd like those yards per attempt to be a little bit higher. So look, they had some explosive plays, but not enough to tilt the balance of the game. So impressive all around. Leonard Moore, I'm gonna shout out Leonard Moore here.
Absolutely.
This is an instance where you don't want to focus on the Pro Football Focus grades too much because they are not opponent adjusted. And we made the move, which Brett, you'd contemplated actually last week.
I contemplated and thought we were going to do the opposite, just to be clear. So credit Chris Ash, great game plan. I know exactly where you're going on this.
Podcast listener Chris Ash, he was like, what, that's a great idea from Brett. So yeah, we put Leonard Moore on Lemon the entire game. Also, whenever I say Lemon, I just keep thinking of and you, Brett, you tweeted out an image of this. I just keep thinking of 30 Rock.
God, Lemon.
God, Lemon. Yeah, I keep thinking of that. It's anyways, I digress. But I mean, look, the key was to not let Lemon beat us, and he didn't. And look, he got some yards, but I would say certainly not what he's capable of. He had I'm looking at his stats right now. He had 76 yards. Right, I think holding a receiver like that, certainly below 100 I would say is successful. And look, he just barely above 75, didn't get a touchdown. So look, we bottled him up. We bottled up the run game, and we said, hey, we're going to make everyone else is going to have to beat us. And they had some players who stepped up, made some big plays, had some explosive plays. But when you take out the run game, you take out their best player, you make their quarterback uncomfortable all game. It's just not enough to make up for what they're losing. And Maeva, another thing I'm going to call out here. Our pressure rate was very solid. So we blitzed about 26% of the time. We got pressure 35%. So we were getting pressure more than we were blitzing, which is just as a kind of a rule of thumb, something you always want to see. Tells you that your front seven's doing its job. And when we got that pressure, it was very effective. His grade as a passer dropped off significantly. Very poor grade. 30% completion rate. Yards per attempt under 6. The 2 interceptions were when he was under pressure. So highly effective. We were definitely getting in his face. Those 2 we also sacked him twice. And we always talk about how that can be a little bit overrated. That pressure is the thing that you want to focus on more. But Maeva is someone who had been particularly good at avoiding sacks. Coming into this game, they mentioned this in the broadcast a bunch of times. He had only been sacked twice the entire year, and then we sacked him twice this game. So I think, while you don't want to focus on sacks too much, I think that in this instance, that is a notable stat that kind of helps give even it's like an exclamation point on the on the successful level of havoc and pressure that we had today.
You hit on a couple things there that I just want to double click on with some additional numbers because I had them in my notes too. Thought you were spot on the Maeva under pressure. Coming into this game, USC's offensive line protects really well. Opponents have blitzed against USC about 35% of the time and only get pressured 25% of the time. So we always talk about, can a defense, get at least as many pressures as they bring blitzes? In this game, those two numbers actually flip. Notre Dame only blitzed 25% of the time. So we brought blitz less than USC is used to seeing, but generated 35% pressure. About 50% more than what USC's offensive line is used to giving up. And then you said it, like prior to this game, Maeva was pretty good under pressure. Like everyone has a drop off, but his Pro Football Focus grade was still 60 when he was under pressure at about 8 yards per attempt. It was a Pro Football Focus grade of 30 with, as you mentioned, less than 6 yards per attempt and 2 interceptions. So we generated more pressure on less blitz than USC is used to seeing this year. And it resulted in really great productivity for Notre Dame's defense, or lack of productivity for Maeva. The other thing on Leonard Moore, over half of those yards came on the one reception where Leonard Moore was not covering Makai Lemon. Worth mentioning, by the way, we both owe a lot of Malort shots to the USC fans out there for saying Malachi Lemon in the preview last week. I think we were both
more
guilty
so
of
than
it.
me, though.
I counted 2 or 3 by both of us, but we owe some Malort shots to the USC patrons out there. But 52 coverage snaps for Leonard Moore, targeted just 5 times, 3 catches. Gave up about 30 yards. All of that was on a 27-yarder. So really got beat once, covering one of the best corners in the country. Leonard Moore, just awesome execution. I want to spend more time on Christian Gray. So I'm going to dive in here to 2 plays. He was targeted 15 times in this game. It was clear, just like last year, Lincoln Riley said, I'm not throwing the ball to Leonard Moore, and I'm okay with him taking Makai Lemon effectively out of the game. So Christian Gray is targeted 15 times in this game. Really big number. I want to start by saying that only resulted in 7 catches, so 47% completion rate. That's actually awesome. Like that's a good day at the office if you're only giving up 7 for 15. The problem was we gave up 150 yards to the tune of 22 yards per catch. Now, that's not great. I want to come back to the 2 big plays that were most of that yardage. Over 2/3 of that yardage really came on 2 catches. But this kid once again stayed with it. Todd Blackledge at the start of the 4th quarter invoked the great coach Ted Lasso. You got to have the mind of a goldfish. You got to forget, move on, next play mentality. He absolutely does that. And once again, becoming what I think will make Christian Gray one of the most memorable defenders in Notre Dame's history is that resilience. Just like USC last year, just like Penn State last year, he once again is resilient, gritty, comes up with the massive interception. Reminder, that's coming off of the kick return touchdown. We had a 3-and-out before then, so our defense had been on the field pretty much nonstop for about 8-10 minutes of game time. And USC has a chance to go take that lead back. Our defense is gassed. Christian Gray picks up the team with a big interception, undercutting the route. We never give the lead back. Like huge turning moment in that game to build on the kick return. But I want to go break down 2 films here. So first play, this is the 59-yarder, where we give up the touchdown to Jacoby Lane. 2 tight ends at the bottom of the screen. The other side of the field is where all of the action is at. So again, just to level set here, you've got Gray down at the very bottom, right above that number 16 sign, and he gets absolutely beat. Excuse me, he's at the top of the screen. I misspoke. He's at the top of the screen. Absolutely gets beat. No doubt about it. But as USC here is celebrating this touchdown, I'm narrating this along. If you're listening on the podcast, go check us out on YouTube. Watch the replay. And this is where I don't understand the play call by Chris Ash. We have 2 tight ends to the left side, and our safety is on the left side. The right side of the field means we are in single coverage with no safety help on Lemon and Lane. We don't need safety help covering their 2 tight ends. We do on Lemon and Lane, and if you pause it, right here, it is clear every other route is underneath this, And Johnson is still drifting to the wide side of the field and is just reacting very, very late. So Gray gets beat, but Tay Johnson is really late getting over there, misses a tackle, goes for a touchdown. Either way, Gray got beat. That was going to be a big play, but Johnson has to be there to make that a 30, 40-yard catch and tackle, not a 60-yard touchdown. And Chris Ash, like, what are we doing putting the single high safety help covering 2 tight ends versus 2 All-American wide receivers on the other side of the field? So I thought, not great safety play, very bad play call. Gray gets beat. That happens when you're on an island. Okay. Next play. Once again, I think this is a little bit of a play call, and I think this is a little bit of, Christian Gray getting beat. But this is the case where I put this next play on the safety. So first of all, bottom of the screen, you'll notice we're in man-to-man coverage, and this is the one time all night where we're in man-to-man, and Leonard Moore is not on Mekhi Lemon. Instead, it's Christian Gray. So one time all night, we go against our game plan. I'm not sure why Leonard Moore is at the top of the screen here, away from this action. Christian Gray guarding in the slot. And again, 4-man pressure, doesn't get home. We actually blitzed here. So 5-man pressure, doesn't get home. And Gray looks like he gets beat badly. Lemon wide open. But I want to watch this play again. Importantly here on the replay, it's 3rd and 9. Gray has to take away the underneath route. He has to guard that 30-yard line here to get off the field. You've got Tay Johnson as the lone safety. He's drifting to the right. If I pause it right here, he's just moved from the left to the right of the logo. No one is over there, and Lemon is right in front of him getting beat by Christian Gray. By the time he's around the 40, Tay Johnson should already be there, but has a big blow in coverage. Big missed opportunity there for Tay Johnson to step up. Instead, gets caught drifting, eyes wandering, running the opposite direction of Lemon, streaking down the middle of the field right in front of him. I don't think that's on Christian Gray. He has to be aggressive at the line of scrimmage. Tay Johnson there has the busted coverage, and there's no handoff for that safety help. It's his only responsibility on that play is to protect the deep ball over the middle, and Johnson gets caught drifting, out of position, loses leverage, big play for Lemon. So it's always easy to say, well, Gray keeps getting beat. Well, we put him one-on-one without a lot of safety help. Sometimes I think questionable play calling. I'd go back to the Jeremiah Smith 3rd down conversion in the national championship game. Was that on Gray, or was that questionable play calling to not have safety help on the best wide receiver in college football? Same thing here. I thought once Chris Ash play call, not very good. I'm not sure why our safeties, protecting the tight end deep ball instead of Lemon and Lane. And then in the second one, I thought we had a great play call. It's 3rd and 9. Tay Johnson just has to protect the deep ball over the middle of the field and has a blown coverage. So Christian Gray, he's the one that looks bad when you see number 6 trailing. I think that's kind of a misconception when you actually break down these plays here. I thought he played a really great ball game, hung in there despite some tough plays that didn't go his way, and comes up with a huge interception here to turn the tide in this game.
Yeah, look, I think these clips that you talked through, Brett, I think it's important to dive into them as you did. It shows that I think we didn't put our players, in this case Christian Gray, in the best position. Luckily, this didn't happen very much this game. Like, generally, this was a very strong defensive performance, and this is really us nitpicking. If it's Leonard Moore in that, now to be clear, if it's Leonard Moore in that situation, you can probably get away with, you're more comfortable saying, hey,
Christian Gray still got beat, no doubt.
Yeah. It's like if it's Leonard Moore, it's like, okay, yeah, we'll take a shot. If it's Christian Gray, who I've always had the opinion that he's, generally speaking, he's pretty solid against most wide receivers in college football. But he can get, like, when it's the top wide receivers in college football, that's where you can get him, and that's true for pretty much any corner. So here we are in a situation.
They're the top wide receivers.
Exactly. It's like, oh, okay, wait, no, we definitely need safety help here. And then also the safeties, they need to be a little bit more aware. They were a little late responding, and in that first clip, we could have limited a touchdown. It could have been like a 30-yard gain, right? And they don't necessarily score there. And then on the second one, if the safety had reacted a little bit faster, like, who knows if they even would have been able to complete that pass. But Lemon had just like a ton of space there. And I mean, look, Gray got beat, but the safety certainly didn't do his job there either. But I think, kind of changing the topic here a little bit on Christian Gray, going back to your earlier comments, I think Christian Gray is just such a perfect symbol for the program and for the culture of the program. He really is like a manifestation of what Marcus Freeman wants. It's someone who, kind of as we were talking about earlier about how this game showed the strength of the program. You get you take your lumps. You maybe have a couple plays that don't go your way, but you're resilient. You trust your teammates. You don't get beaten down, and you stick with it, and then you make a hell of a play. And that's who he has been his entire career. You mentioned the Penn State game. That's one of the most notable examples. USC last year, and then USC again this year. So it's just someone that you look at and you're like, you know what? Okay, yeah, maybe you're not Leonard Moore, but you're still a good player, and you're someone who really represents what we're trying to do, what we're trying to manifest, with our program and our culture.
Absolutely. One other thing in the past game that I thought NBC did a great job highlighting, I thought Todd Blackledge called a really great game, had a lot of good insights. We've dug into several of them. Before this game, Maeva was 39 for 40 on screen passes, just one incompletion for 10 yards per attempt. They call it about 8 or 9 times a game. In this game, 4 for 6, so 2 incompletions. That tripled the number of incompletions he had on screen passes and less than 5 yards per attempt. I thought us stopping Lemon in the screen game, huge part of this game plan. Big credit for Chris Ash to, get through the film, get through the game plan, have an attack for that. And it was effective. Players went and executed it. Couple other shout outs. I'm just going to rip through 4 guys I had wrote down that I thought balled out. Jason Onye, again, Gabe Rubio was out with an injury. Thin up front at defensive tackle. He was our highest Pro Football Focus grade on defense, 2 quarterback pressures, 3 run stuffs, Adon Schuler, 10 tackles, no missed tackles from the safety spot, 6 stops in the run game from the safety position, had the huge forced fumble on Lemon that, really sealed this game. Drake Bowen, again, Light the Torch podcast, highlighted how key their tight ends have been in their pass attack. Bowen was in coverage on 38 snaps, targeted 3 times for just 1 catch for a measly 4 yards. Their tight end just never got going, in large part to Drake Bowen. And then lastly, Boubacar Traore led the team 6 pressures in this game, got home for a sack. When we talked about that havoc, the disruptiveness, getting Maeva out of sync, not needing to blitz to do it, that was Boubacar Traore absolutely wrecking this game. Accounted for 40% of our pressures here in this game. So a lot of great individual contributors, starting to feel like last year where it's like we got to spend 20 minutes just rattling off different guys on defense that balled out. Awesome game for Chris Ash. Mike, anything else on defense before we flip to the other side?
I think we've hit all the main points. I would just say the culmination of all these points that we've been talking about is that we made USC play a little bit desperate. Their success rate was really, really low. We were able to disrupt it because of all these things that we're talking about. And when they got desperate, they started attempting plays that maybe in hindsight didn't turn out to be the wisest. The one that comes to mind is the one with Lemon where he was looking to throw a wide receiver pass downfield, completely blew it up. And Schuler had some interesting post-game comments. He said that because of that desperation from USC, they started calling some plays that were inconsistent with what their identity is. And so that play was a very slow developing play. And Schuler said that when he noticed that immediately keyed him in to the fact that this might be a fake. And that was the sentiment of our entire defense. And so they read that and then they snuffed it out. And I mean, it was like one of the most comically sideways plays that I've seen in a long time. It could honestly, that play, I guess if it had been a scoop and score, that would have been the only way that it would have been, maybe even more impressive, but huge error from USC. But we kind of forced them into that mindset psychologically. It was just getting really tough for them. And then when they attempted this very aggressive play, we identified it immediately and we really made them pay.
Absolutely. Moving to the other side of the ball, Mike, I'll let you run through the running backs and the offensive line. Of course, the headline behind the productivity here, 228 yards from Jeremiah Love, the 6th most in a single game in Notre Dame's history. Somehow the other top 5 were all on the road, which is kind of a crazy stat in and of itself. So this was the home record in however many hundreds of years of Notre Dame football. The most yards ever at Notre Dame Stadium for someone wearing a gold helmet now goes to Jeremiah Love. What a game from number 4, this offensive line, Jadarian Price. What stood out to you in terms of the offensive production?
It was just an absolute clinic in the run game. I mean, like you said, Brett, you have to start with the run game. I mean, Jeremiah Love, 228 yards on the ground. That's just on the ground. He also had 37 yards receiving as well.
Not a bad day.
Yeah, 9.5 yards per carry. His long was a 63-yard run, had a touchdown, and then look on top of that, Jadarian Price. He gets lost here. I'm not gonna say he gets lost here because he had a heck of a kick return, but in the run game, you look up his stats and you're like, oh, Jadarian Price, he had 6.7 yards per carry as well. Carr, even in some short yardage scenarios, we finally saw that be a little bit effective. Now, I don't know if I'm optimistic that that's always going to work, but it's still nice to see. And look, you can't, as great as our running backs were, and this was about as good as it gets, you're not going to be able to get all those yards unless you're getting a really solid push from the offensive line. And you look at the stats, the yards before contact, the offensive line was giving our running backs about 3 yards, a little under that, but about 3 yards. So very solid push. And when you have running backs is athletic and is powerful, emphasis on the word powerful, because Jeremiah Love was just like trucking over people many, many times this game. I was surprised that he actually didn't have as many missed tackles as I would have thought, but it certainly, I think the key was that like he was like really falling forward. And some of these things that were not missed tackles, it was Jeremiah Love like dragging a guy for like 3 yards. So Again, we said that Notre Dame brought a very physical brand of football to this game. That was our identity, and it was something that I think wore down USC as the game went on. And look, the run game was so effective that we had a very lackluster game from the passing side of the offense. But it didn't really matter because we were able to kind of do whatever we wanted on the ground. That's a key reason our success rate was so high, 49%. We really limited havoc, under 10%. So USC was not really able to disrupt us. And we didn't have our level of explosiveness was not quite at the level that USC was getting, but it was still good. It's like when you have a success rate that high, you have havoc as low as that. If you're really able to generate any explosiveness, and I would say we certainly did well beyond that, it's a really good day in the office for your offense. And so, look, I think this isn't the type of performance that I think you necessarily expect every game when you have running backs like Love and Price. But I think coming into this year, I think we expected that there would be, some performances like this. And look, this was about as historic as it gets. I mean, you mentioned all these stats with Jeremiah Love, where he's, setting all these records for like rushing yards, Notre Dame Stadium, rushing yards against USC. So it was such a strong performance that people are now saying, actually, you know what? Maybe we need to think about Jeremiah Love as a Heisman contender again. Maybe we need to actually like put him back in. Part of that's because the Heisman pool of potential finalists is, I would say, weaker than what you would expect. But I mean, look, you get over 200 yards in a game against your rival, a top 20 matchup, in a game that's pretty sloppy otherwise. Like that is a performance that's going to garner a lot of attention. If we had won even just one of those games, Miami or Texas A&M, I bet after this performance, like there would be no question that Love would be right in the middle of Heisman consideration.
So a couple other things in the run game. I thought the patience was key in this game. We've highlighted 3 or 4 years ago, Notre Dame was actually stubbornly just going up the middle, but their runs to the outside were much, much more effective. We've seen kind of the opposite this year, where Love and Price a lot of times trying to hit a home run on every play and trying to bounce it to the outside and aren't getting the edge, and play gets blown up, but are really effective inside the tackles, especially between the guards and up the middle. In this game, runs between the guards, Jeremiah Love had a yards per carry of 13 yards per carry going up the middle between the guards. And he only bounced it to the outside 25% of the time. That means 75% of the time he was going to where his bread and butter was. I thought much more patient. Jadarian Price, very similar. He was super balanced, stayed between the tackles a lot. He just had 2 carries trying to bounce it to the outside. And similarly, when he was up the middle or between the guards, 9 yards per attempt. So both of those guys, I think, did a really great job. Now, it helps when your offensive line keeps just creating huge, massive holes, which brings me to my next series here of clips. Again, credit Todd Blackledge. I thought they did a great job calling out Notre Dame's wide receiver blocking in this game. I'm going to play 4 clips, and I'm doing it to emphasize how many different guys get involved here. So this first one here is the big Jeremiah Love run down the field here. You're going to watch him go take off for 60 some odd yards. Malachi Fields first does a great job deking the cornerback and then goes like, Charles Barkley box out. Like he's just boxing out the corner. He's not even, blocking him with his 2 hands. He's blocking him with his backside, just boxing the guy out and not letting him get around. Here's another really good look at it where the cornerback just never gets in the play. Okay, so huge hole opens up. But from the 30 to the other 30, the cornerback, number 17, is just never in the play thanks to Malachi Fields' great downfield execution. Okay, second clip. I actually forget which one this is here as we tee it up. So in motion, this is Jordan Faison, number 6, starts on the right side of the screen here. And he is used as a pulling guard blocker. He is the pulling blocker like we would use Quentin Nelson. You'll see this come up here on a future clip, but I think the replay does it really well here as NBC shows it the second time. So there's number 6 on the right of the screen. They're, of course, calling out Eli Raridan, the tight end, doing the same thing. But watch number 6 come in, and he's going to go boom, right on number 18, their safety crashing down. That's the guy you see him now chasing Love. Love gets that 3-foot separation there. That is all created by Jordan Faison getting in the middle of the defense like he's an offensive lineman pulling around with a block. Awesome execution from, I think, the smallest guy on the field. Here's another one now. If you pause this, watch Will Pauling in the slot. Watch Jordan Faison now downfield, 2 big tackles. And Faison doesn't even get him really well, but he pushes number 17 here back on his heels. It sets up Jeremiah Love getting to drag him that extra 5 yards. We talked about maybe not a missed tackle for Jeremiah Love, but dragging guys 5 and 10 yards. Well, a big part of that is our wide receivers are downfield, and instead of guys getting to be in good tackling position, they're getting knocked on their heels. And so just effective enough there, both Pauling and Faison getting involved, springing that loose. It's a big gain anyways, but that's how 10-yard carries turn into 30-yard carries. And then the last one, Will Pauling here playing tight end. He's down by the 1 on that 3rd and 1 sign there on the screen. And you'll see now he's right in front of Jeremiah Love. He's the lead blocker here for Jeremiah Love on short yardage situations. Again, doesn't completely blow up number 24, but he's swinging around like he's Quentin Nelson. He's the smallest guy on the field, Will Pauling here. Captain, that's how you get a C on your jersey for Notre Dame right there. Lead blocker. If anything, Love screws that up, and Pauling has it set up for him to cut up inside. Love kind of takes it outside of that block where Pauling doesn't have leverage, but still enough of a block to spring for the first down. I think if Love follows his slot receiver lead blocker a little better, follows the leverage, cuts inside, he might have had another big gain. Instead kind of runs where the block wasn't. But multiple times Notre Dame wide receivers, not just blocking downfield, not just blocking out in space, but getting between the tackles and lighting up linebackers and safety, get our guys to the second level. I love all 4 of those clips. There were a dozen others. I just kept watching the game today over and over again and could have picked 10 other examples, but wanted to highlight those 4. A lot of different guys getting involved from that wide receiver room. I get so pumped up watching the little guy go lay wood on a defender.
Absolutely. Look, and I'm going to, just to round this out, if you look at the run blocking grades, which we always say you got to take a little bit with a grain of salt, but Malachi Fields was their second highest graded run blocker this game. So Raridan was actually number 1, which that's more of the tight end's job, obviously. Or I'm not going to say it's more of the tight end's job. It's all their job. But that is a job.
Apparently.
Yeah. And then look, it's just like you look at these grades, and yeah, the offensive line graded out well, but up and down the roster on offense, a lot of really good run blocking grades. And that's again, consistent with that theme that we're talking about, that this is a gritty team, a resilient team, a team that has like a bit of a lunch pail mentality. And when you have a team that prides itself on that, they're willing to do the dirty work. And all these things, it's not a coincidence that a team that is willing to do the dirty work, that's resilient, they're going to be doing things like this, and they're going to wear down a team like USC over the course of the game. It's not a coincidence that they're going to be more mentally tough, when there's some mistakes that are made, or if they get beat. So just exactly what you want to see. This is the type of identity that frankly last year's team was establishing as they really rounded into form. So exactly what you want to see against your biggest rival. Exactly what you want to see as you're entering this and I don't know if I would call it end stretch, but this the second half of the season. You want this team kind of figuring out who they are, and if it's an identity that's, hey, we're going to push you around, we're not going to get rattled. We trust each other, and we're gonna get right back up after a play that doesn't go our way. These are the types of things that you want in your DNA if you actually want to be able to contend for a title.
Absolutely. Mike, I got some other, what I'll call more situational Denbrock thoughts, but before I flip to that, I think the topic we've got to talk about, and I think you can come up with a lot of narratives for CJ Carr in this game. Looked like a first-year starter, maybe for the first time all year. Still hung in there enough, like if this is his bad game, was a game manager. So I think a lot of ways you can look at his game. How would you grade out and evaluate CJ Carr's performance here in his first, rivalry and maybe last rivalry matchup against USC?
I think when you said game manager, that's about what it was, and I would say on a lower level game manager. It wasn't such an abysmal performance where it put our chances of winning in doubt, but certainly not at the level that we've come to expect from CJ Carr. We've been saying for weeks, okay, at some point, is he going to have a freshman moment? At some point, is he going to, show his inexperience? And he really hadn't. I would say last week versus NC State, he wasn't quite as sharp as he had been, in some other games. But I would say he was still playing at a very productive level, no question. In this game, look, the pressure has impacted him at times. It really impacted him this game. Really low grade when he was under pressure, and he was under pressure 22% of the time, so a decent amount of his dropbacks. I should also call out here though that USC blitzed about a third of the time. So the offensive line they were doing their job. They were not allowing the pressure rate to be higher than the blitz rate. In fact, it was notably below. But when that pressure did get home, that's when CJ was making mistakes. And then even on top of that, even in a clean pocket, this was definitely not his best game either. It seemed like he was maybe not getting through his progressions quite as cleanly. He was maybe second guessing himself a little bit more. And then even just in terms of accuracy, there are a lot of throws that he generally would make. I can think of one play in particular to Raridan when he was cutting towards the sideline, and it would have been a first down. I think it was on a third down. And CJ just sailed it to the left by a few yards. Type of play that he normally makes. If you want to qualify this a bit, not great conditions, right? Rainy, wet. Mayeva was dealing with the same thing, so you could probably attribute some of his struggles to that a little bit. But I think we've come to expect more from CJ Carr, which he's earned. He's played so well. We're expecting an elite passer every time that he walks out there, and so this was a reminder that he does have some inexperience. I think one element that I think I feel good about though is that I'm glad that the bye week is right after this game, because this will give him a chance to kind of settle back, regain his nerves, look at some tape. I don't even know if he needs to regain his nerve, honestly, but I think it'll allow him to look at the tape, kind of quickly put this in the rear view, which I think, honestly, he kind of even did this game. A lot of these struggles in particular, there were more of them in the first half, and it seemed like in the second half, not that he was lighting the world on fire in the second half, but he settled in a little bit more, and wasn't, he wasn't making as many mistakes. I mean, really that interception that's the one thing that kind of, sticks in people's mind, but that's the first, I would say that's really the first bad interception he's had. So
inexplicable. Yep. For sure.
Yeah. It's just bad decision-making. And you look at the replay and there was nothing there. You're just like, what the heck was he where was he throwing? There was, and we've heard that about CJ. He is someone who is always looking to make a play. And so the downside of that is that sometimes you can try to force something as opposed to taking a more certain situation. Although I would say we haven't seen the negative side of that maybe as much as maybe we were led to believe coming out of camp. I guess just to round out his performance a little bit more, to get to some more stats: 61.5% completion percentage on an adjusted basis, 65%. Like that's definitely not terrible.
No, solid. Yeah.
Yeah, but the average depth of target, we've talked about how his average depth of target tends to be very, very high, and his completion percentage is really good for that average depth of target. In this game, that actually was not true. So his completion percentage was okay, but his average depth of target was only 7 yards. So we weren't getting as much production out of the throws that he was completing. Called out the interception, that wasn't great. So look, just not his best day, but I think we've seen enough from him to believe that he'll bounce back from this. And I don't think there's anything that I saw where I would think that other teams like now have some sort of like game plan or blueprint to be able to attack him. I think it's just he was just not as accurate as he normally is, and he was just getting a little bit more rattled than he usually did. I don't think there was anything in particular that USC did that necessarily exposed him.
So my other observations somewhat relate to CJ Carr. I had a similar takeaway. Like, he had the one very inexplicable play. I thought he had a couple of high throws that looked like when young QBs are nervous, they miss high. Like, just mechanically, you kind of short arm it and the ball sails on you. Thought he had one third down read where we forced it down the sideline, and he had a clean pocket all the time in the world, and two guys were wide open standing at the first down marker underneath in the middle of the field, and he just didn't get through his progressions. Like, he had some young moments, but thought he played fine. Helps when Jeremiah Love has the most rushing yards in Notre Dame stadium history by someone wearing a gold helmet. I owe Mike Denbrock an apology if he read texts that I was sending during this game. Watching the game, felt like we were largely running a 50-50 play call, which is what we've done all year. And I don't know why, but USC went with a puzzling strategy of just playing nickel the whole time. They never put 7 people in the box. They never put 8 people in the box. They were out there with 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and the Light the Torch podcast on the preview interview we did talked about how they had gone to a 4-3 look, really using 7 in the box as their standard formation the last couple of games against Michigan and Illinois, had a lot of effect with it and a lot of success with it, and thought that's what they were going to do against Notre Dame's vaunted run game. And they didn't. Nickel was their base defense. And if you're running nickel with only 6 people in the box against our offensive line and Eli Raritan and all those great, wide receivers I'm talking about, run the damn ball. I want to be clear. I think sometimes people think this is a throw the damn ball podcast. I want to be very clear. If there are 5 or 6 people in the box against Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, run the damn ball. If there's 7 in the box, 8 in the box, and you have, CJ Carr's arm strength, throw the damn ball. It's like, what is the defense giving you, and go respond. Now, if there's 6 in the box and we're out there with 2 tight ends, I'd actually argue like, okay, well, that's still like under, still then, or I'm saying that backwards. If we have 6 in the box and no tight ends, that's still an overloaded box against the number of blockers we have. Throw the damn ball. So 6 is kind of the threshold, but they were sitting with 6 the entire game, no matter if we had 6 blockers, 7 blockers, like didn't matter what look we were showing. And I thought we were staying too balanced, particularly on drives where we had a lead, a single score lead, and had a chance to take it to a double-digit lead. In fact, we had 4 such drives where we were up by like 3 or 4 points and had a chance to go extend that lead and make it a 2-score game. And so when you look at this game as a whole, we ran it on 63% of the plays, almost a 2-to-1 ratio. Every other game this year, we've been almost perfectly 50-50. So I wasn't quite picking up on the tendencies watching it real time. I watched it a second time today, and this was a run the damn ball, running at almost 2-to-1 run to pass ratio, highest of the season. And on the 4 drives where we had that chance to go take that 2-score lead that I was talking about, on the first drive, 6 runs to 3 passes, ends in the inexplicable interception that we talked about by Carr. That's not on Denbrock. Carr's just got to throw that away, go take 3 points. The second drive, didn't quite get it. Started off with a run, got good yard price, went pass. So passed it twice, ran it once, 3 and out. Don't like that. Third drive, 5 runs, 2 passes, get down for a chip shot field goal, miss it. All right, that's not on Denbrock. And then the fourth drive, touchdown. Like when we had that chance to go extend that lead, Denbrock was leaning into the tendencies USC was giving us. He was going for the jugular. He was trying to smash it down their throat with what was working best, the run game. So I thought overall, great play calling by Denbrock. The other thing I think we got to talk about is short yardage situations. Reminds me a couple of years ago, everyone was saying Al Golden sucks in the red zone. And once people get down there, we just give up touchdowns all the time. And our guess was sample size. You're talking about, 3 plays here, 2 plays there, 5 plays there, like could just completely change the stats. I feel that way about the short yardage situation as well, but we're getting a little too cute. Thank goodness, we're not doing the Wildcat anymore. That felt too cute. In this game, 2 or 3 times we would run what started with a spread formation and motion all of our wide receivers into a jumbo look and then run out of that. And it bottles it up too much. Like, just go run our offense. Go run shotgun, 3 wide receiver, move Raritan around. If they put a bunch of people in the box, pass the ball. You don't have to go do some bootleg. You don't have to do some sprint right thing. Like, let CJ Carr step back, get through his reads, and pass the ball. And if they stay in nickel or, even there, if they put 6, 7 in the box, but you think you still got an advantage, then run it. And if they show loaded box, pass it. I think we're maybe getting a little too cute.
Totally agree with all that, Brett. It'll be interesting to see how how some of these elements evolve moving forward, particularly the short yardage. I think just a couple other things that I want to call out here. Special teams, we saw great and very bad. Obviously, the Jarian Price kickoff return for a touchdown. That's about as good as it gets, and he's done that against USC before.
Got to win the other hold, by the way. There's a really bad holding call there, but I digress.
And we had a lot of penalties called against us in USC. I think they only had 1, so we'll just say that even things out a little bit. And then obviously the field goal kicking was a struggle. But look, Burnett had a hip injury. I don't know if he's fully healthy. Conditions were not great. Granted, those kicks were they
chippies.
Were not.
Yeah,
they were pretty bad attempts. So we'll see. I mean, it's something to monitor moving forward. But otherwise, great win. We'll see. Hopefully the series continues. I think fans of both fan bases are really hope that it does. And it's really just, kind of like petty political, stuff that's going on with Lincoln Riley and the USC administration. So hopefully they can iron it out because this is a great series and it's been going on for about 100 years. So obviously we've had the series has been going our way lately, and I hope it continues, and I hope that it continues to go our way. But overall, great win. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this firmly establishes a path to the playoff and a path to hopefully allow us to contend for a title. Look, this is a team that still has a very high ceiling that we haven't reached yet. And we could be peaking at the right time if we win out.
Absolutely. Great spot to be here going into the bye week. A winnable November for sure. We'll be back with some more content here over the next couple of weeks, breaking down how we evaluate Notre Dame here at really the midway point of the season and what that run to the playoff can look like. Until then, rest up, enjoy the bye week. Who do we get? Boston College's next. Irish beat Golden Eagles.
Irish beat Golden Eagles.